The Ten Commandments. This is a study we're going to be doing in our Bible study, so I'm going to talk along with the podcast so that you can get the gist of what we're talking about. The Big Ten, the Ten Commandments, Exodus 20, Deuteronomy 5. And something that actually, because we're Gentiles, it wasn't a covenant with us, it was a covenant with God's people. But there's so much richness between the Old Testament Ten Commandments and the New Testament Jesus giving thoughts that we're going to compare. It's amazing because it's not simply about don't kill. That's not the point. The point is, where's your heart? And it's not simply about do not do something. It's about what are your intentions and how are you going about to do things, not just to not do them, but to actively pursue the truth and the right thing. So when we look at the Ten Commandments, you might have all remembered them as a child, memorized them. Everybody memorizes things as a child and then they hang with you forever, which is a good thing because now I can't memorize. But there's 10. The first 4 talk more about our relationship with God, and the last 6 talk about how we live that relationship out with God with others. And that's what the whole Jesus point was. Love you, Lord your God, with all your heart, your soul, your mind. That's your relationship with God. And because you love the Lord, your God, with all your heart, your soul, your mind, you're going to love people differently. And so that's what the last 6 talk about. So you shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Honor your father and your mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, and you shall not covet. Now, a couple things to understand that sometime back in time, the Catholic Church changed, and they don't view the second commandment as a commandment. They skip right over it and add 9 and 10 are the covet commandment. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, and you shall not covet your neighbor's good. And they base that on St. Augustine's study. We're just going to go back to the Bible and base it on what God told Moses and how we interpret it through that. And we're going to change some of the thought patterns that maybe you've always had. But before we even start with the Ten Commandments, we have to kind of go back. There was a commandment given in Genesis 2, and a commandment or a covenant or an expectation of behavior. So Genesis 2:16-17 says, "You are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat of it, you will surely die." Now, we are humans, and human nature kind of says when somebody says to not do something, it's kind of like, oh, that looks like fun. I'll try it. Just remember toddlers. Don't do this. They're going to go and push the limits. So God set up a precedent of, I've made this whole creation. I've given you everything. Oh, but there's one thing I have. Just stay away from. And our human nature goes, oh, but I want to know why you want me to stay away from it. And I want to get as close as I can. I'm not touching it, but I'm close. And Moses is going to have to tell the people in Exodus to not go near the mountain. And it's kind of like telling the toddler, don't go near the fire. Because you can imagine they're going, why can't we go through the mountain? But Exodus 19, 4-6 kind of tells us, sets it up for us. And it says, you have seen for yourself what I did in Egypt. You saw how I carried you on wings of eagles and brought you to myself. Now obey me completely. Keep my covenant. If you do, then out of all the nations, you will be my special treasure. The whole earth is mine, but you will be a kingdom of priests to serve me. You will be my holy nation. That's one of the coolest things, because basically God is saying, I think you're special, and you are so special to me that I'm going to honor you, and we're going to make a covenant, and you are going to be the most important part of me. Now, when someone says that they are special to you, I got some flowers the other day, and the whole first part said, I love you, Maurette. And then it said, you know who this is. You can bet that number 1, I did know who it was, and number 2, that I felt beyond special. Now, when someone does something that make you feel special, make you feel loved, make you feel appreciated, you don't just spit in their face. It warms your heart, it warms every part of you, and it really makes you feel good, and makes me want to pursue the relationship even more, because I know what they did to show me they loved me. And this is what God's saying. You've seen what I've done. Sometimes when I'm flying in the airplane, I think it's kind of cool. I think about that. Is that what it's like to be on wings of eagles? Now, airplane is a little more probably protected. Okay, not more probably. Airplane is a lot more protected than a wing of an eagle. I've never seen an eagle big enough to carry me. But when you look out of the airplane and you see the world go by, you think, this is what it's like to be carried in the wings of an eagle. I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting. I can't flap my arms hard enough, fast enough. I can't do anything but just rest in my seat. And the plane does everything else. And that's what God is saying. I have carried you. You didn't do a thing. In fact, you didn't even crawl up on my wings. I just carried you. So because of all that I've done for you and all I've loved you, then you're going to obey me and you're going to be my treasure. Now that is an invitation to love. So in Exodus 19, God's kind of setting the people up. So God told Moses, these are the things I want you to tell the people to do. I think it's kind of interesting because he says, I've brought you out. And then he says, go back to the people and tell them. And the people said, oh, we're going to do it. We're all excited. This is wonderful. And we will do everything the Lord had said. And so when somebody says, I want you to do this, and they tell you what to do, and you go, going to do it, nail it, you kind of believe them. And then Moses went back to the Lord, and here the Lord says, okay, this is what I want. I'm going to come in a dense cloud, and the people will hear me, and they're going to put their trust in you. So God's telling Moses, they're going to hear me. They're going to understand something incredible is going wrong, but you, Moses, are who they're going to trust. So then God says, go tell the people to consecrate themselves today and tomorrow. Have them wash their clothes, be ready on the third day because the Lord will come down. And then he starts putting boundaries because we are people. Put limits on the people. Around the mountain, don't go near the mountain, don't touch the mountain. And so Moses told the people, you're going to go prepare yourself. And on that third day is when God showed up. Now, you think about that. I've never been told in 3 days God's going to show up. God has showed up in some mighty ways in my life, but I've never been given a nod to, okay, go wash everything up, clean everything up. I just had surgery, and I was given quite a list of things I had to do the night before. I had to put clean bedding on the bed. I had to wear clean pajamas. I had to wash with this special kind of soap stuff. And then the next morning I had to wash. I was not consecrating myself, but I was preparing myself for surgery. And because I wanted the surgery, don't ask me about day 3 because I might not have wanted it after day 3. But I was excited to do it because I was preparing for this big moment. And so the people were preparing for a moment to hear God. And he said, consecrate yourself. Well, that's why you set yourself apart. And wash yourself. And that was a purification for them. And then don't go, there's some boundaries here. Be ready. And they couldn't be near their wives. Basically, that was a purification thing, no sex. But it was we are preparing for God moment. And it's kind of like some of you get ready for Christmas. You go to I do it too. You get all this excitement and we get all ready for Christmas and you're all excited and you can't wait. And it's very hard to wait. But you get the whole house ready, you get everything ready, and then you wait for everybody to come. And it's just this exciting moment. And one of the trips I made down to see one of the grandbabies, or the grandson, I only got one son right now, grandson. I don't know why his mommy told him I was coming early in the day because he stood by the window of that front door and watched for Grammy. Now, his other Grammy comes a mile down the road and she can be there pretty quick. This Grammy takes 7 hours. But he was excited. He was anticipating it. But before all that happened, before God told him what to do, he said a couple big things, and they're reminders. Look what I have done for you. I am the Lord your God. I brought you out of Egypt. This is the land where you were slaves. Kind of goes also to how quickly we forget, how quickly we settle into something and forget the past. So God was just reminding them, it wasn't that many days ago that they came through the Red Sea. It wasn't that many days ago when the Passover. It really wasn't. Yet he's trying to remind them that I'm going to give you some directions. And the reason why I'm giving you the directions are because I created you. Now think about this. I heard this illustration. I thought it was really good. You buy a very expensive car, say a Lamborghini. I don't even know what it is, but I know it's an expensive car. And you want to figure out how to run it. So you go to the dollar store and you buy one of those, cheap books on, dummies, Lamborghini for dummies. And you start reading it and it's like, well, this doesn't really make sense. But hey, I bought it at the dollar store. And you try to operate your car based on a dollar store book by someone who just wanted to make a quick buck. And no, most people wouldn't do that. They go in the glove box, and in the glove box is a manual. And the manual is not written by someone who works for a cheap place to try to make a quick buck and sell books at the dollar store. No, it's written by the people who made the car. So the people who made the car are actually writing how to run the car. Oh my goodness, what a novel thought. That's exactly what the commandments are, is God is writing some directions because he created us. We're his car. He made us. He knows how we're going to work. And there are some limitations to a Lamborghini. There are some limitations to our humanity. And that's kind of what the Ten Commandments are going. If you follow these things, it's not rules and regulations. It's about relationship. But it's a bigger thing than that. If you don't treat the Lamborghini like it needs to, and you don't change the oil, and you don't change the oil filter, and whatever else you're supposed to do to vehicles, it's not going to run right. You don't go back and yell at the guy who made the car. No, it's the person who is supposed to be taking care of it. And it's kind of like what the Ten Commandments are. It's a relationship with God because we want our life to mirror the Creator. These Ten Commandments are things that really tell us who God is, tell us about him. And if we want to be like God and we want to live to a standard that God sets, then we're going to kind of mirror what our Creator is and how he created us. So we have to be reminded of where he brought us from. Now, the Egyptians had worshipped the Canaanite gods. They had Ashtoreth and Baal and all these made-up gods. And when you have a make-up god, you have to make up what your God looks like. Now, we serve a God that's invisible, and we'll talk about that in the next lesson. And that's one of the reasons why God says, I don't want you to make any images of me, any pictures of me, because you don't know what I look like. Now, you could draw a picture of a cow because you know what a cow looks like. You could draw pictures of a dog because you know what a dog looks like. We don't know what God looks like. We know what God has created, and we see God in everything, but we can't create something that tells us, oh, that's God. No, we have to experience things that tell us that's God. So the thing that bothered God probably the most is that they were worshiping things as a God, as someone who attributed great attention, and they hadn't done anything. He was trying to tell the people, look what I've done for you. You worship me because of what I've done for you. The Canaanite gods had not done a thing, and yet the people were sacrificing, were changing their lives, were worshiping things that hadn't accomplished anything. So it would bother God because God asked to be feared and praised. But more importantly, Deuteronomy has a really good verse about God having some expectations over what he created, who he created, which is us. So in Deuteronomy 11:16 and 17, he says, be careful or you will be enticed to turn away and worship other gods and bow down before him. And he's talking about, in Deuteronomy it's 11, he had just given the Ten Commandments and given them some other options as for things that they should do to live healthy, good, holy lives. But he's also warning them that if you don't do this, you're going to be enticed by other things because we go squirrel pretty quick. We see something flashy and exciting and we get all excited. And God knows, I know you do. I have created you that way. But you got to be careful because you're going to turn to other gods and you're going to bow down to them. And they haven't done anything for you and they can't do anything for you. And then the Lord's anger will burn against you. And he's trying to explain to them, you're going to be easily distracted. So focus on the God who has done something for you. So then if we take a look at some of the Bible verses in the Old Testament, we see things like the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. Well, which commandment does that imply? Well, it's about changing our heart. It's about, the law can't convert us. The law only shows us where we're wrong and we need to turn to God. And the testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. If we are wise and we follow the Lord, our testimony will be truth. That let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable. And everything starts in the heart. Everything starts in the heart. And as we talk about these 6 commandments that follow the first 4, everything starts in the heart. And it all starts with what is our idol? And if we have the meditation of our heart is to hurt people, we will hurt people. If the meditation of our heart is to try to make ourselves look better by telling some stories that aren't quite true, you see how it all kind of starts in the heart and then it works outward? So Matthew reminds us that Jesus said, I did not come to destroy the law, but therefore to fulfill it. And anyone who breaks one of the commandments and teaches men, they should be called least in the kingdom, but whoever does and teaches shall be called great in the kingdom. Jesus kind of went on and said, I'm gonna make it easy for you. We're not going to do 10, we're going to do 2. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, and then love your neighbor as yourself. And if we love God the way we should, we will love others the way God does, not the way we want to or understand. But our behavior mirrors what's in our heart. And our behavior, if we follow the mandates, the suggestions, the point of reference of the 10 commandments, which is God's point of reference, we will treat people differently, and our motives and our mirror will look different than if we're just doing what we think is right. So it's heart versus duty. So God gave the 10 commandments for many reasons. One of the things is he wants to remove confusion from our lives. Now, I know sometimes you look around and say, well, we are a very confused society. But it all boils down to, what do we worship? How do we worship it? How do we rest? What do our words say about who we worship? And then how do we treat other people? And the confusion comes when we have a good idea and we think we know what we're doing and we can treat people this way because it's our idea. Well, if it's not from the Creator who created us, it's not in the manual, it's probably not going to work out. He wants us to keep away from Satan. He wants us to spare us the consequences of sin. And a lot of the rules and laws in the Torah, the ones that Moses would have written about, were for health reasons. They were to protect the people. They were to be a called out special people. They were to protect them. He wants us to find out how incredible our lives can be. Instead of, this is my good idea, I'm going to run with it, it's, this is God's idea and I'm going to help him succeed it by my behavior on earth. God understands more than anything how life works. Goes back to the manual. He created us. He knows how we work. He knows what we're going to do. He knows our default. And he's trying to help us set a different standard of our behavior. And when we have a different standard of behavior, our reactions are different, our comments are different, our heart is different, how we treat others are different. But I think the biggest thing is love doesn't always look the way we think it should. Now, I like certain things. I love certain things. Some things I don't care about. But I can tell you, when somebody asks me a question about something, I don't often come about it from their angle. I come about it from mine because that's what I'm thinking about. I think it should be this way. And love doesn't mean I get my way. Love, look at a toddler. You know, if you don't give them their way, they throw their fit and they throw on the ground and they're screaming and hollering and you're looking at them like going, that's not going to get you anywhere. But we do the same thing. So the way God loves us may not often look the way we think it should. But God created us and he knows how we work best. So think about your kids as we're talking about kids. Did you make rules to make them miserable or to help them grow up and mature? Okay, be honest, you might have done a little bit of both. But most of the time, what we're doing was to try to help them not make mistakes, to think about things before they talk. You know, you go through the whole thing and you think about that. God's commandments aren't They're to make me miserable. Although there might be times I am slightly miserable trying to obey his commands, his commands are to help me grow up. And in the process of growing up, I'm going to have some times where I just didn't feel good. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. But it's going to help me grow up. And God's not going to sit and do everything for us either. There were times when we were trying to teach our children to drive that I'd have just as soon taken the test and for them, because then I could pass it, and then we wouldn't have to drive all these hours with them. That wouldn't have helped them, because they had to have the driving hours and freaking us out and me hitting the imaginary brake to learn to drive. So I had to put up with a little bit of nervousness, although our kids were good drivers. They'd been driving dirt bikes and go-karts their whole lives, so on a car wasn't that big of a difference. But I can't do it for them. They have to do it, which makes sometimes my life a little bit more of a challenge. That's kind of sometimes what I think of with God. Now, God could snap a finger and change things for me really quickly, but it doesn't help me grow up and mature. And I learn a lot in the process. So I think the biggest thing is when we talk about the Ten Commandments, the first one that we'll talk about next week is thou shalt have no other gods in place of me or before me. And the one thing we're really going to talk about is the difference between first versus most. Now, we are all going to say God is first in my life. He's the most important thing in my life. And then we have 10 other things underneath God that actually take up more time in our day than spending time with God. But God's first. But those other 9 or 10 or 11 things, jobs are important. Cooking food is important. There's all sorts of things that are important. But they shouldn't be the most important. God should be most, not just first. He shouldn't be first and then everything else lines underneath it. God should be most and everything else falls in where God's most affects. So just some thoughts for this week. One question to just think about. How does, when you think about the commandments and you think about God and you think about my behavior mirroring God's law and the beauty of God's law and everything God has done for me, that's what drives me to obedience. How does this change my daily walk with God, my daily faith, instead of doing things because I have to, because God said I have to? Doing it because of where he brought me out. The many times I soared on eagle's wings. The many times his arms protected me. That should be my driving force to love, obey. Just something to think about. Have a good one.